You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Combos Podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos Podcast. I'm your humbled host, Harut, and I'm here with my good brother Ra. How you doing?
Brother, living and learning and enjoying life. Brother, how about yourself?
And doing pretty good, man. Same here. Learning something new every day and whatnot, man. Man, we it seems like a long time, man. We took a week off, man, and feels too long. How you feel about that?
Brother, it's about the same, man. A week in astrology seems like an eternity, King. So it's right on the money with the same perception. I got the same idea. It's been too long, so we back at it.
Indeed. So yeah, we're locked into episode 8, man. It we're moving along. We kind of took like I don't know if I want to call it a mid-season break, but maybe quarter season, something like that, man. But we're racking these episodes up, and here at episode 8, it actually kind of ties in perfectly to our the topic that we're going to cover today and whatnot. We're going to cover a very, very, very interesting character, and I think everybody will enjoy. But before we get into today's topic, I want to remind you all that today's show is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Kalapurusha Astrology. You can find Push It Forward Media Group at Push It Forward, that's PUSHITFWD, on Instagram. And you can find us at pushitforward.com. That's where you find all the short films. You can find this podcast and other video productions, film productions that we got going on. Brother Rod, tell them how to get in touch with you at Kalapurusha Astrology.
Several ways you can get in contact me. The main 2 avenues to get a hold of me is on Facebook via Shechem Ra. You can just put it right on in, and it'll come right on up. And then also you can find me on IG as well. Same name, same title. And it'll pull up right on there for you as well. And then also you can, if you're ever interested, or drop in on YouTube from time to time, you can look me up at Kalapurusha Astrology on YouTube. And if you want to send me a message that way, that'd be great as well.
Indeed. Yeah, get with Brother Ron, get your get your consultation on, and get in sync with time so you can be able to leverage these teachings and really kind of take what you're doing to the next level. All right, and with that being said, we still got the giveaway going on. Like I said, I'll make a post and I'll detail the requirements to qualify, and essentially what we're going to do is we're going to give you a copy of your sidereal chart, your natal chart, and it'll also come with a couple of what we call divisional charts as well, and your chapters of life, your Doshas that you hear that you hear us mention so many times throughout these shows, so you can see what kind of life chapters you're going through and what kind of life chapters you got going ahead. And it's also just a good thing to have sitting by you while you're checking out this podcast, or to just have in your mind while you're looking at it. And you might find some similarities between the different charts and different things that we break down, and you might find those same things in your chart as well. So we're we're still, tracking, everyone coming through. So we'll keep it rolling for, maybe a couple weeks, and then we'll stop it and, come up with a, good, Arum Mila type way to, pick the, 3 people to, be able to cash in on this, this giveaway and whatnot. All right. So yeah, let's just, we're going to go ahead and get into today's show. Like I said before, we're here at the 8th episode, and, the person that we're breaking down today, definitely coincides with the number 8, and you'll see why in a second. Very, very, very powerful, person in history, pretty, probably inspirational to a lot of people. Just a little bit before my time, but I got an opportunity to experience this brother through playbacks, and being able to catch the movies after the fact. But a lot of people, especially growing up in the 70s and stuff like that, really was inspired by this brother. He's small, but he packed a whole host of power, and a pretty mean punch and kick as well, and whatnot. So in today's episode, we're gonna get into the brother. We're gonna enter the dragon, with the good brother. May he travel well, travel safely, Bruce Lee, and whatnot. And this is a show that I'm definitely excited about, because there's a lot of interesting things around him. A lot of great things that he accomplished in his life in a short period of time, and even his exit. His exit, through this incarnation was pretty mysterious, and the legacy he left behind also has some a great deal of mystery behind it as well. So this should be a definite interesting and very educational and educational show we have for you and whatnot. So what you think about the brother Bruce Lee, Brother Ra?
Oh man, one thing we can always do is look at, we look at individuals and their destinies and how things unfold. We get ideas of how they are from a surface view. But when you pop the hood, as I say, when we look at the engine and look at the inner workings of a being, it's phenomenal to see how all these things interconnect. So when I very first began to look at his chart and to delve into his destiny, it speaks volumes as to the true raw power that this man held in such a small and seemingly inconspicuous container. So I have to agree with you on everything you said so far, brother, and we're going to back it up today.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and get rolling. First thing, I'll go ahead and just give our birth data that we got for good old Bruce. He was born November 27, 1940 in San Francisco, California, and I have him at 7:12 a.m. That match the data that you got, Brother Ra?
Right and exact.
All right.
Right and exact.
So if we do that, that would make him a Scorpio Ascendant, right?
All day, every day.
Indeed. So the 8th sign, 8th episode, we right in track, right?
Right on the money, King. That's perfect. You can't get any better than that. That 8th sign is a potent, powerful energy, brother. And I don't care how you cut it, how you look at it. When you have either the ascendant, moon, or sun, or even 3 or more planets in that particular sign or energy zone, that is going to produce some phenomenal power. And one of the things that Scorpio on this plane and this third dimension has to learn is to control their power. Scorpio ascendants typically, now of course, you have to take in all considerations and factors with regards to the person's physiology. So I'm talking about their hereditary traits, their genealogy, their family tree. Those things have to always be taken in consideration when you look at someone's physiology and overall makeup. But one of the things that you can surmise is that individual 8 times out of 10 is going to be smaller and more compact in regards to how their body structure is composed. And you'd be surprised how much you can be deceived, right, by someone that is seemingly so small, but yet extremely powerful. Right. I know several, quite a few Scorpio ascendants, and most part they're very much, I don't want to say they're not petite, but they can be very muscular. Right. If you saw Bruce, he was thin, but he was definitely muscular. Right. And they're also very well built. Right. And when you look at Bruce, he's a thin guy, but those muscles, this physique is structured very well. And that's basically because Scorpio is ruled by the planet Mars. Planet Mars itself rules the musculature system in physiology. So by and far, right, they have the ability to I don't even say become athletic. That's a lesser word to be able to describe them, but they have the ability to be physiologically oriented above and beyond all. So, Scorpio Ascendant is a fixed sign, and so they have a very strong will. Right now, we all know the will can't really be strong, and what we truly know, but it's, for lack of better words, they have a lot of kidney chi, if you know what I mean. Right? They have a lot of kidney power. They have a lot of power to add to the will. That supports the will, right? And so, that kidney power, that fearlessness, right? Because, when you overcome fear, right? When you face your fears, right? You gain a notch up, right? That energy notches up, right? You move up a level, you level up, right? That means that, you can overcome great and insurmountable odds, right? Yeah. And that's what Scorpio has the power to do when they learn to control and focus that power. Right. It does make them intense, so they can be very intense, right? Very, right? They can be very dictatorial, right? And that's because the 10th house, which literally governs how the world interacts with us at large, is Leo, right? So 10 houses or 10 signs away from the Scorpio sign is Leo. So that means they automatically have a disposition to try to rule the world. Right. The funny thing is that, and a side note to this is that doing some research, it was kind of odd. I found a few things that really kind of took me back, in that one of his little titles, kind of the nicknames that they gave him when he was a kid, there was one of them I recall, they called him Little Dragon, and he's actually born in the year of the dragon and the hour of the dragon. So in Chinese astrology, that's right and exact. But they also called him Little Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And Little Phoenix, when you understand Scorpio, right? Scorpio in Western astrology has like three basic general titles that they kind of go with. Of course, one is the serpent, reptile, or scorpion, right? That's kind of all rolled into one. Then they have the eagle, right, which is higher level of operation for these types of individuals, that basically they have more discipline, more self-control, versus the Scorpio or the reptile type that really kind of just allows their stuff to hang out, if you know what I mean. They kind of just go with the flow and don't really have that discipline. But when they have that discipline, they level up to the eagle, and the top level is called the phoenix. And the phoenix is a bird that was supposedly known by Greek legend. It's actually called the Bennu bird in Kemet, right? But we won't even get into that. That's a whole nother topic. But it's called the phoenix, and the phoenix is the bird that rises from its ashes. And we're going to see how Bruce actually rose from his ashes. If you know a little something about Bruce, you already know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Scorpio is a sign of radical transformation. Now, I know a lot of people out here, they give it the kind of epithet of death, right? The title of the sign, the planet, the sign of death, right? And really in astrology, to be 100% honest with you, which we always are, right? It's really not death, right? If you understand how astrology works, the 8th house is not death, it's how you die, not when you die or the cause of death, right? And so the 2nd house and the 7th house, which are called Makara houses, are truly the houses of death when you understand astrology. Right. So we won't even get into that. It's a whole nother show, a whole nother topic. But just understand that it's not that to say that you're going to die, but you're going to be in death-like situations, things that would want you or make you want to be dead. Right. So you rise from those ashes when you have that indomitable spirit like Bruce Lee had, like Scorpios can have many times. They have an indomitable spirit. You can't break them, right? You can't really crack that hard external shell, right? Because they're built to last, right? They're built to move in and out of tough situations. They're tough guys, right? So, they have to be tried and tested. One thing about Scorpio, they're born on this planet to be tried and tested in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
Yeah.
Right. So a few other things that kind of go along with it. Scorpios can be very brooding. Right. And brooding doesn't always mean as a negative connotation. It means that someone can be very intense in their inner world. Right. They can be very focused in their inner world. The inner planes has a lot of weight to them. Right. They're in their mind a lot. Brooding not in the sense of, being depressed or overthinking. And they can do that as well. Absolutely. They can do that, folks. Scorpio Ascendant can actually overthink things to the point where they literally lose an understanding of what they were even trying to do in the first place. But in Bruce Lee's case, we're talking about someone that thinks deeply, right? They can be very self-conscientious, right? They don't like for people to judge them. They don't like to be and really no one does, right? But for them, it's kind of like a way that they find a reason to lash out. They don't like to be, judged. They don't like to be ridiculed. They don't like to be laughed at or made fun of, right? They're very touchy. And remember, if you look at a scorpion's body, just like a spider, right? Same thing with a spider. In fact, scorpion is related to the spider, right? But if you look at a spider or a scorpion, they have tiny, tiny hairs on their body, right? And we're taking it personal. This knowledge is so that you don't take things personal. Let me say that first and foremost. This knowledge is so that you have knowledge of self. Know thyself. Well, if you are married, you have cousins, brothers, siblings, family, co-workers, friends, right? And you know some general things about their destiny and chart. You say, well, wait a minute, they got that Scorpio thing going on. And they're always so touchy. It's not personal. Right? It's just that they're built with these tiny sensitive hairs that they can feel their environment. They can feel the subtle changes around them. So when something happens or someone approaches them in a manner that might be a little hot or heated, they react instantly. Right? So those hairs are very sensitive to touch. Right? So it's not personal. Right? They suffer from, undefined fears. They really can, because of the brooding, because of the nature of how they're built. They always are in an emergent role. They always have an emergent disposition. They're always looking for something to attack. And they also call it a tamasic disposition, right? They fault find, right? They try to find things to literally combat, right? And this is not personal. This is just how they're built. And once you understand that, you don't take it personal.
Yeah.
Right. They do actually prefer to live a secluded life. Right. These guys are not ones that are, for the most part, they don't have a public display of private matters, if that makes sense to you. Doesn't mean they're not in the public, because Bruce Lee, from the age of 6, was actually an actor. Right. So he was acting before he actually started martial arts. Long before. So, not to say that he's camera shy, but when whatever's off camera stays off camera. Right.
Yeah.
We didn't get privy to a lot of his life until he passed. So he didn't display his family on film. I've never seen him in a film with his family. I've never heard of one. I don't think he would have produced one. Just knowing his nature and that scorpionic energy, he would have preferred to keep those things very private and very secluded away from the public eye. They also lead an unconventional life. Life for them is not a leave it to beaver, white picket fence, walk in the park. Not at all. If you look at Bruce's life, far from it, right? So, some other things to add into the equation. That's just Scorpio Ascendant. It's at 13 degrees, right? Scorpio, which puts it in the nakshatra, what is called Anuradha, right? And maybe we'll do a show that touches on nakshatras in the future. Maybe we'll kind of delve into that as a subject. The power of nakshatras, the power that they add to the focus and the scope of astrology.
Yeah, we definitely need to.
Oh, yeah. We need to. We will do that, family. We will do that, folks. We will have a show on nakshatras so that you can gain some power that only is produced in the East, right? Through a system called Jyotish, properly termed, misnomered, or mistitled, rather, Vedic astrology. And there's no disrespect for they call it Vedic astrology, because that is something that people are entitled to do. Some people call it Indian astrology. Some people call it Hindu astrology, right? But the proper term is Jyotish, and Jyotish are the eyes of the Vedas, right?
Yeah.
So back to Mr. Bruce Lee here. His ascendant is very potent, very energized, very much empowered. The sun, the planet of power itself, par excellence, is in the ascendant at 12 degrees within 1 degree of the ascendant degree. That is extremely powerful. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about the 10th Lord, the most powerful house in any chart, anywhere, anybody, is not the 9th house, but the 10th house. 10th Kendra houses are powerhouses, right? These are the fundamental basics of which our life, our framework is hung upon, 1, 4, 7, and 10. And 10 is the most powerful of the 4. So when that 10th Lord, wherever it goes someplace, that place is imbued with the level of power, imbued with the level of heavenly access, if you will. The 10th house is our heaven, our mid-heaven, they say, right? So anything that's above you, right, is considered powerful. And so that sun that rules the 10th house is in the ascendant within 1 degree of the ascendant degree. So that means that physiologically, he had a lot of power in that little body.
Oh, yeah.
1-inch punch, right? That gives you a good indication of how much power we're talking here, right?
Yeah.
That 1-inch punch can knock a man back, and I'm not talking about a little man, right? And granted, I'm sure there's, let me say this first and foremost, as well as with regards to martial arts, there's always somebody better than you. Always. And many times these people that are so dynamically potent in martial arts aren't on camera. You'll never see them. You'll never know them. You won't even hear about them. But the one that we did hear of, the one that actually transformed that Scorpio thing again, the way America took in martial arts, right, had a relationship with martial arts, is to a large degree, right, because of Bruce Lee.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Right.
Without
a doubt, right? So that 10th Lord in the Ascendant, again, we're talking about Scorpio, built for power, 10th Lord in the first house, within 1 degree of the Ascendant degree, more and more power. Right. So, that says a lot. But let's get into some deeper aspects of this individual's life and destiny, because it really is a true story that we can look at and say the heavens have definitely written this man's destiny. Right. Some other things that we want to be mindful of is that the Ascendant Lord itself, which is Mars, right, is conjunct or with, all right, we call it UT in Jyotish. UT means with or conjunct. It's with Venus itself, right? So when the Lord of the Ascendant is with Venus, they have the need to perform. Right? Any type of planet. I'm not talking about, Saturn can make some adjustments too, but for the most part, major planets, when they're rule the Ascendant, when they're with Venus, they can produce someone that likes to perform. Right. Acting, right, as I stated, was done. He was acting at the age of 6. Right. So from jump, right, we're talking about an individual that was, destined to give a good show. Right. Now, moving into what we call the Dashas again, the life chapters. And this is when we begin to see the pattern of how life unfolds for us, right? How life is articulated through time schedules and through appointments that planets make in our lives, right? And the Dasha, or the life chapter that he's born into, is a Rahu Dasha. Now, astrology, this form of astrology, has many, many ways to read a dasha, because there's so many interlacing and interconnecting factors with planets and how they act. You have to understand the trumping order of how these things go. But when you have a Rahu dasha, you always look to say, okay, well, what house is it in? Okay, well, Rahu isn't really a planet technically. It's a sensitive point in the sky. But it's given the power and the status of planets because of the story of Srabanu that was cut in half, that became the demon known Rahu and Ketu. Right? Yeah. But Rahu has what is called, right, a karmic distribution planet. The planet that rules Rahu is the karmic distribution planet, meaning it is the planet that disseminates, right, and activates whatever Rahu has in store for that individual's chapter of life. Now, Rahu is in the 11th, right? But Rahu's lord, or the ruler of Rahu, right, is Mercury, because it is in Virgo. And Mercury is in the 12th house. Now, that says volumes because, right, and just as a side note, as I stated, when Mercury is with that Venusian energy that gives him the gift of putting on a good show, Mercury is also about precision. So this was a very precise individual, right? But back into the Rahu Dasha, right? Rahu, right, ruled by Mercury, Mercury being in the 12th house, this individual and the Ascendant Lord is in the 12th house. So this really shows that this individual would be born in a foreign land. And Rahu rules foreign things. Right? So Rahu ruling foreign things. Rahu's Lord is in the house of foreign lands. His Ascendant Lord is in the house of foreign lands. So literally, he's born in a land that's not native to his own type. And let me say this, folks, because I know a lot of folks can say, well, he's born in America, so how is that just foreign because he's born in America? Well, just because you put puppies in the oven don't make them biscuits. Right? If you have an African born in Siberia, yeah, he's Siberian by citizenship, but he's African by birthright. Right? But Bruce Lee is Asian by birthright, Chinese by birthright, but an American citizen. There's a difference, folks. Yeah. Right? So, being born in a foreign land, right? Foreign to your DNA, foreign to your genealogy, foreign to your way of life, foreign to your parents' way of life, foreign to how you idealize and recognize the world at large, right? That shows that Rahu's in effect. Rahu's Lord is in the 12th house in effect. So this Dasha period he's born into quickly reveals exactly what's going on at the onset of life. Now, next thing I want to touch on, right, is that in the movie, and look, movies are movies, right? I'm talking about the Dragon movie. There really hasn't been very many other documentaries that would be quote unquote motion picture worthy, right? Other than Dragon, right? And it's a good movie. I'm not knocking the movie. Excellent movie, right? Got a lot of people interested in Bruce Lee. I already knew about Bruce Lee because I'm a 70s baby. And like you were saying, man, we in the Saturday morning, turn on the tube. We didn't have cable. We had like 4 channels at best, man. We had 4 channels and we was happy with 4 channels, bro. It wasn't like we had to have a whole lot. But when we turned on that Sunday morning TV, man, it was, pow, 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 all the whole bit, man. Martial arts TV, right? And late nights too, right? Sometimes the late nights would get you in and get you some good martial arts TV as well. So, we was kids acting it out, acting like we was doing the bit, right? And I even dabbled a little bit in some martial arts as well, right? So by and far, right? That was the main thing when I was a kid. But the movie portrayed him as taking martial arts at a very early age. This is not true, right? This is make-believe. This is the motion picture industry. And they have to do this stuff to kind of make the movie a little bit more exciting, right? A lot of filler that they have to do. Yeah. So he didn't begin his martial arts training until 1953 to 54, right? Now, we're on the Dasha kick, right? So we're in the life chapter unraveling of this man's life. We already established his general makeup, which is the Scorpio, Sun in Scorpio, but now we're understanding how this life unfolds in a 3D way, right? On the third dimension, right? On this plane. And so Bruce Lee, in the year between 1953 and 1954, begins his martial arts training. This is at the age of 13. Right. Well, just so happens that the Dasha period that ensues is Jupiter Moon in 53. Right. May 22nd, 1953 is when the Jupiter / Moon. When I say moon, remember we said Rahu is a Dasha, right? Well, we have sub-dashas, right? Or Dasha Bhuktis, or dashas that have Dasha planetary periods within planetary periods to kind of refine and hone in and specify what the larger planet is doing in a smaller framework. So Jupiter, right, Rahu, let's give an example. Let's go back to Rahu for a second. Rahu gives a person his life and unfolds it within an 18-year cycle. Right? 18 years. So 18 years is not going to be the same thing for 18 years. These small nuances, these shifts, these changes are dictated by the sub-period, right, which the sub-periods are only going to do what the main period has in store. So there's kind of an interrelationship between these two, and that's how you begin to read the life chapters. Well, Jupiter now is the life chapter, but that is in 53 and goes all the way up to 1958. So when 53, 54, he's in a Jupiter Moon Dasha. Moon is in the 12th house, right? But Jupiter is the planet that rules gurus, right? Teachers, higher knowledge, wisdom, spirituality, right? Expanding your consciousness, expanding your mental awareness, right? And so Jupiter, that's what a teacher does. That's what a guru does. He expands, he takes you from one minimal thinking level to a higher level of understanding. And that's exactly what happened. Now, here's the great thing about it. And I get right back to Jupiter Moon. But Jupiter in itself, Jupiter is in the 6th house. Right? Now it says a lot. For those of y'all that kind of already studying, it should click real quick. 6th house is the house of combat.
Yeah.
So his guru, Jupiter, teaches him the art of fighting. 6th house. Can't get any better than that.
Nope. And he had he had very, 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 very notable teacher too.
Ip Man, right? Yeah, I mean, Ip Man has gained notoriety unto himself, which he deserves it, because Ip Man wasn't no joke either, right? And his guru was powerful, right? Well, here's the other thing, right? For Scorpio Ascendant, the 6th house is also ruled by Mars. So not only do we have a 6th house placement for Jupiter, which perfectly fits him in with the context of fighting, now it's also ruled by the planet Mars, which is also fighting.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I can't fit this into a framework as if I'm like looking at something that's, I just came up with and concocted on my own. This is written in the heavens. Jupiter is giving him a guru that is a fighter, that is teaching him how to fight and teaching him to overcome his fears. Jupiter Moon, back to that particular arrangement, the moon itself is in the 12th house, but it's in opposition to Jupiter, so that means that there is a one-to-one relationship between student and teacher. Right? And moon is within 8 degrees of Mars, so that means that moon is conjunct Mars, and that is called a Chandra-Mangala Yoga. We talked about that in the past, right? Chandra-Mangala Yoga means this person is no joke to be reckoned with. They have an intense, fierce, even sometimes mean streak, depending on how things are arranged.
We can't get
Man, these Chandra-Mangala Yogas are everywhere, bro. They're everywhere, right? And those of y'all that have them, you do well in certain areas of life, and you're not to be played with. And it's a very powerful combination because it gives you a fighting spirit in and of itself without even any type of scorpionic placements, right? But, he is a fighting spirit. So this now, his moon, his mind, right? His mentality, his ability to filter reality, which is what the moon is, literally is conjunct the planet of war, the planet of fighting, the warrior planet. So he has a warrior mind and a warrior physiology. And also a warrior spirit, because the sun, they also say, is how the soul or the spirit is carved. So he's fight, right? Well, Jupiter Moon, showing that right there, starts the process. Moon is the period before Mars, so he goes from a Jupiter Moon to a Jupiter Mars period, delving right into martial arts. Right? And that happens in 54. September 21st, 1954 is when Jupiter Mars Dasha begins. I mean, you can't get any better than this, folks. I don't know about y'all, but when I looked at this stuff, I said, this is phenomenal. This is phenomenal. Right? Now, moving forward, right? And we're going to tie into the next dasha, but I just want to make a quick statement about the dasha, and that whenever you have a shifting period between one dasha to another, it's called a dasha sandhi. Dasha sandhis are real rough for anybody, right? This is a period when we are really changing the energetic sheaths of our body, right? The energetic sheaths, meaning you have a manamaya kosha, you have a pranamaya kosha, you have a annamaya kosha, right? Koshas are sheaths, different bodies within us. We don't just have a physical body, we have a psychic body, we have or a chi body, we have a mental body, right? We have a causal body. We have different bodies But the bodies and the way they unfold and interact with the way life has planned, these sheaths change their structures and they begin to reshift when the Dasha Sandhi, or the period between one Dasha and another Dasha, changes. Right? So he's in a Dasha Sandhi in 55, from 55 all the way up to 58. So I'm sure at this period he's continuously training and mastering certain levels of martial arts. Well, in 58, right? In 1958, right, the Dasha Sandhi ends for Jupiter Rahu and the Saturn Dasha begins. Right? Now, Saturn Dasha ensues for quite some time. It's for 19 years. So Rahu's for 18, Saturn's for 19. Right? So these are not short periods. These are not periods that are just going to fly by. And even the shortest of them, which is 7 years, is still fairly quick. And Mars and Ketu are the shortest periods of those two Dasha periods, right? And for good reason. Right? Because Ketu, if it was any longer than 7 years, most of us wouldn't be able to endure those intense times. And it's meant to unlock and unravel deep things within the spirit. But aside from that, back to the Saturn Dasha. So Saturn Dasha, right, it starts in 58, right? If I'm correct, I believe he moves to America in 58. Right?
I think so.
He moves to America, right? Yeah. So that shows that this is a change, right? This is a shift. This is a reorientation. And Saturn rules the 4th and the 5th house from the moon, so he goes for education, right? It rules the 4th house from the ascendant, education. You can't get any better than this, folks. This is written. This is written. This man's, all of our destinies are written. And it's not that the fact that the destiny is written, it's what you do with it. Yeah. It's what you do with it. You know, you can't change what we call Sekert's plan. Can't change that. That's impossible to change unless you're at a high level of being, and unless you're a Brahman or a sage, a literal walking divinity, piece of divinity on earth, who self-realized rather, is what they say. If self-realized, you can change destiny, and it takes a great deal of force and energy and consciousness to change destiny. But it can be done. But you have to be high level, high caliber being. So for the most of us, we have to walk this destiny, but it's not the destiny itself, it's how you walk it.
And even getting there, you still got to go through. I mean, your destiny is part of how you even get there in the first place. So,
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You're born, and you're not born a sage. You're not born a god, man. You're not born a reflection of divinity. You're born with the potential of it. So you have to walk through those early years, and those early years are prescripted as well, folks. So you still got a taste of destiny.
Oh, yeah.
Even at the highest level, right? But he's not there, and I'm saying, not to say that this man didn't have some self-realization. I'm sure he did, right? 4 planets in the 12th house, this man was all into spiritual knowledge, what we call self-liberation. Other word is moksha, meditation, all these things that the 12th house represents, trying to get out of the bondage, quote unquote, of reincarnation. Now, of course, there's no such thing, because even if you're a divine man, you don't mind coming back and helping those that need help. So that's a misunderstood process as far as trying to escape called the samsara of existence. That's not true.
Yeah.
A divine man will never try to escape the fact that he's from this planet, is of this planet, and literally will help this planet once he himself reaches a certain level of self-realization. So this is not something that is really truly of African-centered thinking. It is something of a European-centered thinking that filtered down into India.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he or she. We don't want to get in trouble with the ladies.
Okay. You're right, bro. You're right. He or she. But the Saturn Dasha period begins in 58. Right. He goes to school, comes to America, right? Right now, again, and I'm not going to get into too many deeper aspects to kind of confuse people, but just know that there's a direct relationship between the 12th house, right, and the Saturn period, because Saturn is also in the 6th house. It rules the 4th house and the 3rd house, but the ruler of Saturn is in the 12th house. So again, we got foreign travel.
Yeah.
So Saturn is in debilitation in his chart, right? It is debilitated in the sign of Aries. Right now, the debilitation is canceled. What is called a Nietzsche Bang Raja Yoga means a deficit becomes an asset, a liability becomes an asset, a deficit becomes a strength, a weakness becomes a strength. Many ways you can say it, right? And we'll see how and what happens with this particular Saturn Dasha here in a very quick second. In regards to that transformation process that Bruce Lee had to go through. But for the most part, Saturn in Aries creates someone that's very impatient, impetuous, poor planning, reactionary, revolutionary. And there's nothing wrong with being revolutionary. We need good revolutionaries from time to time to shake up the status quo. So that is by far a very powerful thing that can be an advantage. But he was revolutionary to his own kind, right? They didn't want him teaching the Gwai Lo, and that's in the movie, and that is in reality, folks. He did have a fight that he fought for the right to teach his own students, and he won that fight. Right? Tying that fight into the movie and comparing that movie to reality, he didn't get his back broke at the fight. Right. So again, we got another misnomer, right, or misinformation in the movie where the guy jumps on Bruce Lee's back and cracks his back. That never happened. Never happened. But what did happen is in 1969, when the Saturn Dasha is in full swing, right, he broke his back. Right, and he broke his back. Now let's talk about it. Saturn's debilitated, right? Saturn rules bones. He rules the skeletal system, right? The skeletal structure, right? And it's not to say he had weak bones, because the sun also is a planet that rules bones, and the sun is very strong. But I'm talking about the general overall overlay and inner workings of the skeletal system is Saturn by far.
Yeah.
Well, Saturn is debilitated or broken. His back, his spinal, there's a cord in his sacrum. When the sacrum is one of the major bones that connects to your spine, was severed. Right, that cord, that nerve was severed through the bone. Right, now this was done because guess what? Bruce was being impetuous, rash. Saturn debilitated. And what happened was he was doing what's called morning glories, right? And this is a weightlifting technique that many people use to try to strengthen the back muscles and strengthen the core, if you will, right? Your core. Well, he did it, but he didn't warm up first. Being impetuous, right? Not thinking things thoroughly, right? Having that Scorpio, I can conquer the world disposition, Sun in Scorpio, even more so. So that that Saturn impetuousness, that rashness snapped his back, broke him in two. Right? And that shows that Saturn Dasha in 1969, right? In the Saturn-Mars Dasha, y'all. Mars is in the 12th house of loss. Mars rules the first house of body. Mars rules the 6th house of struggle, opposition, overcoming obstacles. Well, he overcame and tried to overcome the obstacles in a Saturn-like, impetuous, irresponsible way. So his body went through loss. The physical body ruled by the physical body ruled by Mars, representing the first house, is in the 12th house of loss, Saturn, Mars, Dasha. Perfect. Perfect. Hospitalization, 12th house. The Ascendant Lord's in the 12th house of hospitalization. He was hospitalized for over a year. The doctors told him, you will never walk again. There's the Benu. There's the Phoenix.
Yeah.
There's the radical transformation. There's the death-like situation. This is written. So, that indomitable spirit that Scorpios can possess and that impetuousness changed him. The liability became what? An asset. So that drive, right? The courage that Scorpios can have, especially with Sun in Scorpio, literally gave him the power to change his life back to where he was doing martial arts once again. He defied the doctors. That is a powerful individual, y'all. How many of us, just by hearing, you go to the doctor and they say, oh man, you got just a little something wrong with you, and their chi drops. Then most people don't know, if you don't have a good control of your yi, your mental focus, your ability to understand and control ideas, the yi leads to chi, so you begin to get sicker right when they make the pronouncement. But Bruce Lee's went the opposite way. They said, nah, I'm going to conquer this. I'm going to overcome this. I will walk again. I'll take one step at a time. Took him a year, probably a little more. But within that time frame, he overcame the adversity that was his own self-undoing. So we're talking about destiny, y'all. You can't even get around any of this stuff. It is literally etched in stone. Right? So, remember, these planets are conjunct the moon. So this is also a connection to the mind, right? It's connected to the mentality. That Mars, which rules the 6th house, is right next to the moon. So there's that Chandra-Mongol yoga with the connection with that debilitated Saturn, which it was canceled because any planet that's 7th is any planet that's in the Kendra, which is 1, 4, 7, or 10 from the moon, becomes a canceled debilitation. And Mars, the planet that rules Saturn, is also in the 7th house from the debilitated planet, which is a double cancellation. So this is a cancellation by and far, right? And it doesn't mean, remember, it's not saying that you're going to remove the adversity. It means you're going to change the adversity to your advantage. That's what a Anicca Bang Raja Yoga does.
Yeah.
Right? So, right, I can't get any better than that, y'all. I mean, we can. If you're looking at it and you're practicing this form of astrology, you should be looking at it with your jaw hanging open, seeing that this is something that was literally, it was destined to be. Right now, we have choice. Yeah. We do have choice, but guess what? He didn't make a choice when he looked at those books.
No.
Now, further note, just sidebar, right? And we'll get right back into tying it up with regards to how Bruce exited this particular plane and transitioned into the inner planes. His 7th lord, right? And 7th lord, 7th house represents your wife, right? Well, the wife is in the 12th house, right? Venus is in the 12th house, right? The 7th house, 7th sign, which is across from Scorpio, is Taurus. So the ruler of Taurus is in the 12th house. So his wife is of a foreign nature as well. The 12th house is the house of foreign lands, foreign people, right? And guess what? She took martial arts as well. Well, Venus is conjunct Mars. Right? So, I mean, this is all written. This is like right there in your face, right? This is this man's chart, far and far. Right? This is how you rectify a chart. You go through and you make sure each single piece is recognizable by someone's life events. This is rectification.
Absolutely.
And if you want that done for you folks, that is a service that I do provide. It's about $275 if you're interested, because we have to go through a lot of questions, a lot of dates and times and places and people and events and all kinds of matter of circumstances to fine tune that time, but we can get it within a good 5 to 10 minutes. And even if we do it properly, we can get it to within 1 to 4 minutes. So if you're interested, let me know. If you don't have your time, we can find it. Now, right, so we know Bruce Lee's wife is foreign, right? 7th Lord in the 12th house, right? Venus itself, which represents wife outside of it, ruling the 7th house, and also rules the 12th house as well, right? But just to say alone, without those combinations, Venus is the wife and it's conjunct Mars. So now we also know wife has some martial energy too. Right. Moving on, right? And let's say this, right? Remember we talked about Tupac, right? We talked about Pop, right? And we said Pop's mom was incarcerated, right, during a period of his during a period of her pregnancy, which pregnancy and the moon is mom, right? Yeah. Well, guess what? Bruce Lee is born in a foreign land. His moon is in the 12th house. Mom was in a foreign land at the time he's born. I mean, come on. Come on. 12th house is just in prison. It's foreign lands. Right? I mean, this stuff is phenomenal. It is phenomenal. The power of this science is unfathomable. And I'm not knocking anybody's approach to Western astrology. If you do what you do, by far, do it well. Anything you do, do it well. But this science, I don't have to fudge nothing. I don't have to cut nothing. I don't have to add nothing, subtract nothing. I read it as it is, and it reveals the destiny.
Absolutely.
So, moving on into Bruce's end, right? And, may that individual, brother, and man, be well honored by his ancestors, right? May he be a Sheps amongst his own. But Bruce exited this plane July 20th, 1973, right? And it was still in the Saturn Dasha period, right? It's in a Saturn Rahu period. Well, folks, this is what I truly surmise. And now, here's the thing. And just as a side note, again, these side notes will detract from where we're going, and we'll come right back, right, to where we're headed into the ending of his life during the Saturn Dasha. But his children, the 5th house, right? We talked about that, right, King? Remember, God, we talked about the fact that 5th house's children, and it kind of talking about curses and things of that nature.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Well, and I'm not saying, look, we have to be very careful. We have to distinguish certain things. Now, the movie itself is a movie. It showed him fighting some curse that was placed on his family for XYZ reasons, right? I get it. But in Jyotish, in this form of astrology, and in other spiritual sciences and spiritual systems, they do have curses. I'm not saying whether or not a curse is 100% real. It can be, though. I mean, let me say this to you. Let me say this. Curses can be real. They can be real. And guess what they say? they say, now I know Palo Mayombe, right, which is out the Congo, that's supposed to be one of the most feared spiritual systems of the black man, black woman, right? I get it. And it is got some serious potent power, right? You got Yoruba, you got all kinds of different spiritual systems. They got some power behind it. And I'm not saying that it's any more or less powerful than other systems, but let's just say this. If you get a Chinese curse put on you, some of they juju.
Yo.
You might have to go to Palo Mayombe to get it up off you, right?
No joke.
Yeah, their juju's no joke. You think Chinese medicine is something? I got some Taoist books on spells that'll blow your mind. Right. Their stuff is no joke. And it does parallel to the African systems, y'all.
Oh yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. It's like that's the thing, man. That, you know, not to go too off track, but I really encourage everyone not like to find spells, but to really study, you know, these systems thoroughly, and you'll find that they're not that different from each other. I mean, you can see where certain things might have, you know, veered here, veered there, but like there's definitely a common ground between most of the ancient spiritual teachings on some level or some type of footing, you know?
Absolutely. And, you know, I taught the I Ching and still do from time to time for certain students that are, you know, personal individuals under my tutelage. But and not even of my own, but there's information out there to show that the original Chinese were black, right? So, I mean, that's not a far stretch to know that their ancestors they're of African descent. If you look at the Kun people, right, that are out of the Kalahari Desert, they have slanted eyes. Oh,
Nelson Mandela looked like a tall, dark, you know, Chinese man.
Absolutely. So, you know, that's just to show, but the fifth house is children, right? The fifth house is children. And the planetary indications for curses many times are Saturn, right? Saturn is not in this combination in the fifth house, but Ketu is. The southern node is, and the southern node and also the northern node, Rahu, these three guys can be indications of curses in a chart. So this is a little odd that this man's son, first son, fifth house, is murdered on the set of a movie after he's actually being idealized and idolized just as his father was. He was just as potent in the movies as his father, and he was taken out by a so-called accident by a shotgun that had real live fire. That's a little odd on a set.
Yeah, that's something that should never happen. Like, not right. Even, there's no reason to even have real bullets in there. Not even, like, at all. For a movie.
Why? For what? Right? So, you see what I'm saying? I'm not saying curses. I'm saying there was no curses. I'm saying the oddity of this man's life in certain regards is just a little strange for me, for my taste. Right? But back to the end of life, right? Back to the end of life. So, lo and behold, right? He's in a Saturn Dasha period when he exits. Now, Saturn is in debilitation. So, this is a definite life chapter that is full of challenges, full of things that could go wrong. Full of things that could really literally change your destiny to a point where you can't come back from it, or even if you do come back, you're not going to be the same. Now, my summation of it is this. Now, let me, before I go any further, qualify what I'm saying. Saturn is debilitated in the 6th house. Saturn's lord, Mars, goes to the 12th house of hospitalization. But the strange thing is that Mars is also with Mercury, which is the lord of Rahu. So now we have the Lord of Rahu, Rahu's emissary, Rahu's planet that disseminates his will, does his bidding, right? Is in there with the planet that rules the ascendant, the first house, and it's in there with the planet that rules the Saturn that's debilitated. So when we show this Mercury, right, so we know we've qualified Saturn, right, because Saturn is a time period where things are broken. Saturn breaks things, right, to remake things. It doesn't break it permanently. Saturn can break you to make you, as they say, right? And we saw that earlier in his life when he was in the Saturn Dasha period earlier. But this is different in that he's in a Saturn Rahu period. Rahu's lord is Mercury. Mercury is the nervous system. It governs the nervous system, and it's in opposition. It's in a seventh house relationship. It's opposing Saturn itself. So now we have these two contending or fighting or opposing or teetering or seesawing, right, with this man's life period at this time. Well, Mercury rules the brain. It rules the nervous system in and of itself. Now the moon, right, which is also another way to understand the brain as well, a secondary way. The moon, the Mercury would be a primary way. And we look for what is called confluence in a chart. Confluence is when we have 3 to 4 strong factors that create a manifestation. Right? It's like a thread that becomes a tapestry, a thread that becomes a pattern becomes a tapestry, right? So we have a tapestry that is written, that has been etched or created to manifest something to go on with the brain, something to go on with the actual physical body, because it's also impacting the ascendant lord. This is how you read Dasha periods. This is how you read your life chapters. So Saturn restricts, it blocks and constrains, it does create obstacles. Well, remember, he overcame one obstacle. My surmise is this, and this is what I truly do in my heart of hearts, believe. Can't prove it because we can't exhume the body and really understand. And some people say it was a curse. They said, some people say the Chinese took him out. It's very well possible. Right? And it could be probable. Possible and probable are not the same things. I'm saying it could be either or. But I do know this, that when you overcome or overcompensate in one area, another area will take the blow of where your compensation comes from. Yeah. And the nervous system, that spinal nerve, that's the nerve that was snapped when that sacrum, that bone cracked, he might have healed it on one end, but produced a cause and effect on another end where now it's pulsating and erratically firing in another area, which is the brain.
Yeah.
Now, Mars rules inflammation. Mars is in the picture because this is, of course, again, all this moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars are all within the context of, they're in the intermixture of Mars's makeup. So meaning that they all have this kind of mixture that goes on with the ascendant, which is the physical body. So now the physical body is now literally being broken again, but in a way that was at one point where the weakness became a strength, now became a weakness again. Right, and so we qualified it. We have a Saturn Dasha in the Rahu Bhukti sub period, right? Mercury rules Rahu, so Mercury is in the 12th house. Mercury is the brain, is connected to the physical body. It is in the house of loss. It's with the moon, which rules the fluid, right? And they say they pronounced him dead from cerebral edema. Right, cerebral's brain, edema is swelling fluid, right?
Well, another thing that's interesting too is that Mercury is also the 8th lord.
Oh, brother, we didn't even get into that, man. You know what I'm saying? By and far, it is the 8th lord. Absolutely. And so that adds a whole contextual atmosphere that this is change time too. The eighth house rules change, sudden events, unexpected occurrences. So I'm saying like this by and far is the man's destiny, right? Written in the stars, right? And this all goes to show, right, that this is, right, the way we can begin to read destiny, right? This is the way we begin to understand how life has been preordained, preset, right, to have events that happen to give us, right, the realities that we experience. Let's say Bruce didn't overcome let's say he didn't overcome the debilitation in one way, he might have lived in another way, but would he have really lived, right? Because this man has an indomitable spirit.
Yeah.
So he chose his path, right? He picked his poison, so to speak. Now again, whether or not to say that the Chinese mafia or Chinese whatever, right, hit him up with one of them boom bam beans with them, certain combination of acupuncture points that puts some little something in his food. Who knows? But I'm sure the man was extremely healthy, extremely observant, right, and extremely spiritual, because we're talking about a man that created his own martial arts system, Jeet Kune Do. So this is a very powerful man. So, that just is to show, this is this man's destiny by and far, right? How you feel about this, brother? What, you got any comments or anything you want to add in before we tie it all up?
No, I think we hit it, man. I think this is solid. It's right on, because you can map it to the time periods when things happen, and and just, for a little disclosure, we research, but not like, we not to that level. There's certain elements of things that we kind of have sort of some dates to, but when we look at it through the Doshas, it just confirms it. And then we go and we look at it, it's like, oh yeah, it did happen that day. So we're really kind of leaning on what the chart says. We're not like researching this and then doing it the opposite way, so to speak.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Let's drop this in there. Let me just drop this in there just before we go. When he breaks his sacrum, his back, because the sacrum is in your hip and it's connected like right where your spine ends. So it is your spine. It's your back. It's your lower back, but it's your back. Well, guess what? Scorpio rules the sexual area of the sexual organs, which is the sacrum, right? And not only that, at the time this happened, Saturn was in transit. It was his Saturn return.
Wow.
Saturn is in opposition to Mars in the return.
Oh,
so wow. When you have a Saturn return, you are literally learning a life lesson.
Well,
that's transit and Dasha. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't get any better than that,
no.
Right? So we knocked this one out, man. I hope the audience enjoyed it. I hope the fan base, you enjoyed it. Like Atef said, like brother said, get your Dash, get your information. Use these opportunities to begin to learn how to surmise things in your own destiny, and then the destiny of those around you that you are care for or you love, so that you begin to learn how your destiny and their destiny is carved and written, and can even begin to use and co-opt it to walk a more dignified and spiritual life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we pretty much sum that one up, man. It's nothing else to say. It's a phenomenal science indeed.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, indeed. So, with that being said, we want you all to come and participate in the giveaway. And part of the purpose for this show is that we want to have fun with it for sure, but we also want to take astrology out of the realm of like tabloid magazine, or like stereotypes, and a whole bunch of other things that people kind of put astrology in that realm. But it's really a thorough, serious science. It's not a joke. I mean, we have fun with it. It's interesting. It's not, you don't have to always look at it from a serious perspective, but it is a real serious science, without a doubt. Very much, tied into, what we go through spiritually, and, kind of what we came here to do. So I hope that, through listening through these shows, you all are starting to kind of see that, and really want to kind of get some more insight into what's going on in your life during this incarnation. So definitely take advantage of this opportunity. I know it's a lot of apps out there, a lot of free stuff out there, but trust me, it doesn't match up to what you can get from a real thorough chart, proper calculations, and set, and some of the extra information that a free software is not going to give you. So definitely take advantage of that. So yeah, this pretty much wraps up episode 8. Before we close all the way out, I want to remind you again that this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Calipurusha Astrology. You can find Push It Forward Media Group at Push It Forward, that's PUSHITFWD on Instagram, and Push It Forward, PUSHITFWD.com. That we can, get connected to, all the videos. We have short films coming up. The Veg Kingdom Project. It's a concept for a vegan food travel show that we shot. And you can also find this podcast as well. Brother Rod, tell them how to get to Calipurusha and how to, get linked up with you.
Actually, there are 4 ways if you're interested in hitting me up with questions, things that you would like to know further. And, one of the things that we do on the show as well is if you have any questions, definitely drop us a line. Let us know some things that you want to hear about. If you have any comments or anything, any input, let us know. We do love to hear from the audience, and we do look forward to those things so that we can actually even address those things before we even get started in any show. So, please, drop us a line. Let us know what you're interested in and what you'd like to know further, and we will delve into any and everything that you drop in. So on that note, you can reach me on 4 different ways. The 2 main ways is through either IG or Facebook. You can find me at Shechem Ra on either one of those platforms. You can also find me on YouTube at Calipurusha Astrology, and you can also find me or hit me up through Gmail at calipurusha@gmail.com. So if any one of those 4 ways is available to you, definitely take advantage and get with me, and we can definitely rap a taste.
Absolutely. So without any further ado, with this show, you probably it's about it went a little longer than what we may usually do, but we're gonna go ahead and close this out. So I hope you all enjoyed the show. Stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to our to this podcast, and connect with us on social media, and like Brother Ross said, engage us, give us some feedback, ask us questions, and we'll definitely address